Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, best Dr. Seuss story.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcast should have a theme song. Podcast should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it.
You know what?
You're right. We got this.
Oh, hold on a second. This might be loud, and I apologize if it is. Ah, shoot. Well, he's going to be my friend for the episode.
What happened?
A fly just landed right on you on my screen.
On me?
Yeah, on you,
Get
Hal.
it off. Get it off of me. I can't do this with a fly on me. I can't podcast
Hold
with
on.
a fly. Yes.
I got it.
Ow.
Well, you wanted me to get it.
I don't want you to get me. Just get
How
the
was I
fly
going to get
away.
it but not get you?
Be humane.
I am humane.
Oh, that's more acting than I've done my entire life.
Hey, buddy. Who was that laugh that we just heard?
That was our friend and our guest. He is a writer, producer, podcaster, and currently has a Kickstarter for Volume 2 of Rise of the Kung Fu Dragon Master, which you can support, and you should if you like action comedy, which we all do. Mr. Chris Mancini, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here. Yes, it's the blanket email that goes out for 30 days during a Kickstarter. I'm like, who's got spots? Who's got spots on a podcast?
We always have a spot for you.
Yeah, we are always happy to see you. We've been on your podcast, Tales from the Abyss, multiple times,
Yes.
and love it. It's so fun. It's reminiscent of, Twilight Zone, and I guess since it's audio, more like Suspense back in the 50s.
Well, yeah. I was telling Hal that the last episode you guys did, The Waiting Room, got some amazing reaction from. It really hit people on a psychological level, where I was talking to somebody about it, and they're like, man, that one just really kind of and they literally trailed off as they were thinking of the episode.
Yeah. And I tell you, I listened to it. I felt the same way. I listened to it and I was like, and we were in it. We read it. We read it multiple times out loud, got notes. But it's still, it hits you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that show's amazing. Tell everybody about Volume 2 of the graphic novel.
Rise of the Kung Fu Dragon Master is an action comedy, 100-page graphic novel. It's being Kickstarted right now, Volume 2, but it's okay if you missed Volume 1. You could get that as a Volume 1, Volume 2 package, or Volume 1 is also in the White Cat Entertainment store. It's about Rick, a small-time crook in Los Angeles, who isn't really good at anything except being angry. He accidentally gets the power of the dragon and gets mixed up in a mystical battle between good and evil that's been fought since the days of ancient China, and he's ill-equipped to deal with any of it. And it kind of has a feel of the 80s buddy comedies and Big Trouble in Little China. So it's got monsters and dragons and cool martial arts. And I sent my artist scurrying to a bunch of cool martial arts movies and Jackie Chan, and having him do a lot of references for the poses and the actual martial arts. So it's a really fun book, and it's just kind of a love letter to those 80s movies that we all kind of grew up with.
That's fantastic. How fun is it to have an artist that you can just say, you know what? I'm going to call up my artist right now and be like, can you make me just an awesome, kung fu poster, but they're doing it on top of a Ferrari? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just having that, it's like Christmas every day, or it's like having an art genie.
It
cool,
really is
nerdy stuff from childhood.
Yeah, and it's also, as you know from doing production, it just takes so long to do literally anything in film or TV or even videos. I have this image of, somebody fighting a giant or a dragon in my head. It's going to be a lot easier just to have someone draw that.
Yeah.
If only you had the artistic ability to illustrate your own writing, that would be something which our topic for today is a guy who did just that, Dr. Seuss. Of course, 6 times he did it. We're not going to see that anymore because of poor choices in sensitive racial depictions. Those books are not in consideration for best Dr. Seuss story.
But good choices by the people at Random House, I guess it is his publisher still. But who, for saying like, hey, these books are problematic, we're taking these 6 off the shelves.
You know, we're all relatively the same age to have grown up reading things that had super insensitive drawings in them and to think nothing of it because it was just what was presented. Well, these are kids' books.
Yeah. And these are Dr. Seuss. He wouldn't do that.
We're not, exactly. So we're taking away the ability to, on some level, normalize that kind of imagery, which is a good thing, even though maybe somebody else will retell that story in with better drawings.
But yeah, we don't need to harp on the ones that are not going to be the contenders. Do you guys have any that when you were kids were particular favorites of yours, standouts? Because our job here is to objectively answer subjective questions. So for this one, let's get the subjective out of the way. Do you have one that you loved growing up?
Yes.
And I guess not growing up, but at the age that you would be reading them.
Yes. And also, I was a huge Dr. Seuss fan. I would literally read everything, even like, the one about Oobleck, like even like the ones that no one else was reading, the Dr. Seuss, with the birds and the king and like the Oobleck and the birds eating the roots. Like it was insane. One of those. But the one that I think spoke to me the most was I had trouble getting to Sala Salou. And one of the reasons was like, cause as a kid, I didn't quite get it at first, like what the underlying message was for this book. I just loved the story, loved the artwork and stuff, but the ending always kind of like, well, I'm not really sure. Did this end? What's going on? And as I reread it as I got older, because I've always been like a Dr. Seuss fan, it clicked probably like a couple years later, when I was an older kid. And I loved it like even more. And the underlying message is like, you have, this character who's getting beset upon by problems and troubles. And he thinks, well, if I could only get to this mystical city, all my problems are gone. And so he goes through all these different problems to get to this mystical city where they don't have any problems. I'm like, okay, that's where I want to be. And then when he gets to the city where there's no problems, there's a little creature in the keyhole where it keeps swapping the key away. So they can't open the key to get to this mystical problem-free city. And then the doorman goes, well, just come with me to this other city. And they really have no problems. And he realizes that I'm always going to have problems. And he goes back home with a different perspective and a different attitude and a club to, as he said at the end, now my problems are going to have problems with me. And because he was beset upon with all these creatures at the beginning too. And I thought that was such a great message that, it doesn't matter where you go, there's going to be problems. You have to deal with them. And to learn something like that at a younger age, I think is phenomenal.
I think that's why, outside of the crazy signature illustration style and the iambic pentameter and the clever words, he was the first one to use the word crunk. You can thank Dr. Seuss for that. Is the reason why they endure and why we read them as children and still connect to them as adults and then in turn impart them to our children is for that reason precisely, is that there are many of them have morals and lessons that apply just as much to adults as they do to children. That's why everybody gets, the places you'll go as a graduation gift. You have like 18, 21, 22-year-olds getting this book because it still has meaning, even though it's ostensibly a children's book.
Right.
Well, I think he wrote to audiences so well. Like he knew the exact audience he was writing to. The Places You'll Go came out in 90. So he was 86 when that book came out. And, he's writing it to any age of a person who is graduating or going through things, keeping it super universal. You look at Hop on Pop and he's writing to literal 3-year-olds, right? He's writing to Hop on Pop is, what do they call it? The simplest Seuss for earliest use or something like that was the tagline for it.
That's your entry level Seuss. Exactly.
And it's like, here are 3 monosyllabic words that you are just now learning how to use. I'm going to put them together in a funny way. I still remember, like, he wrote Cat in the Hat because the Dick and Jane books were boring. Like, That was his charge, was write an interesting book for young readers. So I think he did a great job of, finding his audience for each of those stories, and for when he wants to get those morals across, he does a great job of picking different ways to say them. You know what I mean? Like, he has a point he wants to make in the Places You'll Go, and he's just saying, you can do this. Mm-hmm. This one is, what was the name of the one that you mentioned? I'd not heard of it before.
Oh, I had trouble getting to Sala Salou.
Yeah, I had trouble getting to Sala Salou. That's, an allegory through just a storyteller, or, it's, telling the story. You've got the Lorax, where it begins with one kid asking a story of an old hermit who was the one that learned the message. So like, his style, I think, is so fun and bounces around regardless of how old his audience is.
Yeah. Well, he even made a book on aging. So he really hit every demographic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really true. He did write to audiences. He even did a book on nuclear proliferation. Remember the butter battle war? I think it was one of those where they were arguing whether to butter the bread on the top or the bottom, and then the weapons got larger and larger. It's pointed at each other.
Yeah. By the way, this is kind of embarrassing, Mark. You were like, what is your favorite Dr. Seuss book? And I was like, it's Hands, Fingers, Thumb, which is not a Dr. Seuss book. It is part of his early children's series, but is written by Al Perkins. But I love that book. I know it's not Dr. Seuss. And I was so excited to talk about it. And my entire life.
Oh no.
I've been living with this Mandela effect of it being a Dr. Seuss book. And I think I'm going to need a moment, but I also, of the Seuss books, probably the Lorax is the one that I like the most and connected with it probably the most when I was like 12, 13, 14, when I started to go like, oh, we should care about the environment. Yeah. And here's a story that's been telling us that for decades.
I mean, even the art in that book is heartbreaking. That image of just the gray factory with all the trucks leaving.
And the last tree getting cut down. Like, he uses the color palette so effectively, where everything is like bright and colorful and cheerful. And as the book progresses, like you said, the grays start coming in more, and then all of a sudden that's all it is. And you're like, oh my God. Yeah. It hits you right in the gut, that book.
I love that use of color too, which my other favorite that he did that particular thing with, I think, is, the Cat in the Hat Comes Back.
Right.
In the Cat in the Hat Comes Back, the mess that time, it always is Cat in the Hat creates a huge mess, and then right at the end, Deus Ex Machina cleans up the mess before whoever else comes home.
Yeah.
And in this one, he leaves pink icing in the bathtub. And then as you read the book, the pages, and it's a snowy day. So like page 1 is just white with snow. By the end of the book, every page is fully pink as this pink icing is just getting everywhere, which I think is a really fun, that's writing to your audience. You're writing to the youngest readers. So a book that slowly turns pink is exciting.
And it's one of his rare sequels. He didn't make too many sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His other sequel is great too. Porton.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Porton hatches the egg is first.
Yeah, that's the first one. And then he hears a who.
Yeah.
Yep. It's hard to pick these are all amazing books.
They're all so good. Well, let's take a little bit. I want to look at this.
Wait a minute, Mark, before we do that, what was your favorite? What is your subjective book that maybe you don't think will win? Like, I think the Lorax might be a contender, so it feels weird that I don't have like, I love Hunches and Bunches or something like that. But is there one that's sort of a sentimental favorite of yours?
For me, when I was a kid, I had a Fisher-Price cassette recorder. The little brown cassette player, that also had a recorder on. Any kid that was, I'm 42. So anyone that's roughly my age may have had this version of a tape player as a kid. Cassettes were always yellow, and there was a yellow cassette that I had of one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
Yeah.
And I wore that little yellow cassette out. I listened to it a million, and I had not thought about that cassette until I went back to look at all these books. And I'm reading one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. And I get to an image where, the Nook has a book hanging on a hook on his hat to teach him how to cook. And, I vividly, instantly remembered the sound of cellophane crinkling to mimic a fire, which in the book that came with that Fisher-Price cassette recorder, they told you that's how you make sound effects, is crinkle some cellophane to make the sound of a fire. And they actually did it on this One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish tape. And as soon as I saw that image, I heard that cellophane crinkling, and I found it on YouTube. It's that cassette track is on there. And so that to me, One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, for the number of times it was read to me with the little turn the page sound. Like,
Yes.
Well, you could probably get that at Comic-Con, that tape, for about $1,200 if you still wanted it again.
Yeah. Your childhood is available to you.
Exactly.
I mean, I can get that Yogi Bear and Yogi and Boo Boo book with the cassette where it goes, boom, and it's just them like trying to steal picnic baskets in like an electrical storm. I can't even remember what the plot was. It's always like, that's all Yogi Bear wants is to eat your food.
Yeah, that's it.
And he needs it to be in a basket. If you put it in a plastic bag and you tie it to a tree, he will go into a blood rage.
Yep.
Never seen before.
Boo Boo is always the conscience, but he's got to eat too, so he doesn't really try too hard.
Exactly.
He's also like, maybe we should hide the body in the cave, Yogi. Because, once the ranger finds out, he's going to go crazy. It's a very delicate psychological balance that needs to be kept in Jellystone Park.
And this particular Jellystone adventure was also part of that Random House beginner books that Dr. Seuss set up for the youngest readers, right?
Also by Al Perkins. Weird that he hit a lot of range as a writer.
I also thought my Mandela Effect book for that was Are You My Mother? I always thought Are You My Mother was a Dr. Seuss book, and it's not.
Oh yeah.
Because it was in the same publishing arm.
And it's got the same, it's got the little Cat in the Hat logo on it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's kind of part of that, imprint.
It's in the Seuss crime family.
Yeah.
It's like a consigliere.
It's legend. It's not canon.
Yeah. It's the meme of Mom, can we have Dr. Seuss? And then it's we have Dr. Seuss at home, and it's Al Perkins.
Yeah.
That's your homemade, that's the Eddie Murphy homemade hamburger. It's better than McDonald's. Couple peppers and onions soaking through the white bread. Now, how do you want to attack this, Mark?
I want to attack this looking chronologically, because I think it is fun to go through a few different phases of Dr. Seuss.
Okay.
Because there wasn't much, he started as an illustrator primarily, right? He got famous doing illustrations for Bug Killer. And then he came out with his first book, which we have not talked about yet. Dr. Seuss's first book in 1931 was called Boners.
We have not talked about that.
We have not talked about Dr. Seuss's first book, Boners, from 1931. Boners back then, okay.
Boners were different back then. They had bowlers and they rode around on bicycles because cars were too expensive. And they suffered in the Great Depression and built tent cities in Central Park. Sorry, it means something else, doesn't it? I didn't get it right. Sorry.
Mistakes.
Yeah, mistakes. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so he wrote a comedic book of mistakes called Boners. I just wanted to keep saying it over and over again, I guess.
Also sponsored by Manscaped.
And then he did a lot of stuff for the war effort during World War II. Big supporter of Roosevelt.
A lot of political cartoons, right?
A lot of political cartoons. And that was when he had some of the real problematic stuff, specifically about the Japanese. And he, I guess, got visited by 3 ghosts a little later on, because a lot more of his books later were about being kind to all people and kinds of people, whether they have a star on their belly or not.
Right.
So he comes back from the war and he starts writing these children's books. Then this is where I think the big turning point is. 1954, Life magazine publishes an article about illiteracy and how school children really, really need help reading. The director of Houghton Mifflin compiles a list of 348 words that he thinks are important for first graders to recognize. He asks Dr. Seuss to cut down this list to 250 words and write a book using only those words. He writes The Cat in the Hat using 236 words. And that is when Dr. Seuss takes off as a children's book author. From then, he's got So that was 1955. He has Cat in the Hat.
I think it was in 57, wasn't it?
57, yeah. So at this point, he had already written Horton Hatches the Egg and its sequel, Horton Hears a Who.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, If I Ran the Zoo and Mulberry Street, which are not in contention. So he writes The Cat in the Hat in 1957. Then you get The Grinch in 57, Green Eggs and Ham. You get
One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish.
You get One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, and all of these other classics. Hop on Pop, Fox and Socks, all starting in the late 50s through the early 60s. So if we want to look chronologically, let's start with the Hortons. How's that? And then we'll move into the Cat in the Hat and beyond.
Sure. And we're just looking to grab finalists, whoever we think.
We're just looking to grab finalists at this point. We're going to talk about the collection. We'll pull some finalists and we'll see some things that we like.
Well, I will say about the Horton books, when you have the first one and the second one, it's amazing how even in a children's book world and mythology, how Dr. Seuss took a smaller story about sitting on the egg and compassion towards one being or another person, and the sequel, he literally blew it up into another world. Like, well, not only should you be nice to like one thing or person, you don't know what worlds are out there or what people are out there. So you should kind of be nice to everything because you never know when you're going to crush an entire world in your fingertips.
Yeah. I love those books.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first one is, it's so simple. It seems like, and that's one thing I love about so many of his stories is they're just a simple thing that essays have been written about, extrapolating assorted meanings out of. The first one is just Mother Bird swindles Horton into sitting on her eggs so she can go to Palm Springs.
Right.
And then it's just an elephant sitting on an egg. That's it. Mm-hmm. And he says, what's his line that he says that's an elephant is
faithful 100%.
There you go. An elephant is faithful 100%. I said what I said and I meant what I meant,
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And and it just it builds from there. So you see this like these character arcs in like literally animals. You see this terrible, essentially a negligent parent. And someone who steps up to fill that void for a child. I mean, this is why so many essays have been written. It seems like such a simple story on the surface, but it really isn't. There's a lot more things going on, and he just goes. He moves forward from there.
This is a good time as any as we sort of start digging into these, and of course there has to be at least one Horton story that makes it into the finals or becomes a finalist. What are we looking for? We have books where the majority of them are written in iambic pentameter they have banana balls illustrations. And a lot of them, do we go based on iconic characters or do we go based on what the story is underlying? Something like Horton Hatches the Egg where it appears simple, but has a much deeper story. Are we talking about the moral that we connect with? What are the criteria for something like this?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right.
I think those are all criteria.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
It's not iambic pentameter through. It's all kinds of different meters throughout.
Right.
That he's pulling. And I think that's one of the really fun things about it is, the Lorax has a different sort of lyrical style. So like the Cat in the Hat books have, their sort of clipped styles. One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue. No, not One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. I forgot to mention Green Eggs and Ham. Did we mention Green Eggs and Ham?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was, the most famous written on a bet.
50 words.
Cerf. Yeah, Bennett Cerf said, I bet you can't write a book with 50 words or less. The book has exactly 50 words in it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that that's one thing that I think we can look at too is how he uses language in it and to what end. Like Fox in Socks is using these crazy tongue twisters, I think teaching kids about both rhyme and meter and rhythm, and also teaches them about how, look, if you change one letter in a word, clock becomes click and click becomes chick. So it's it also is interesting ways of playing with language. Another fun one I heard is it's about Mulberry Street, but they got the idea for the story from a boat that he was riding with his wife across the Atlantic. And it was the da 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 that became To Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. From, so he was just feeling kind of the rhythm from the boat.
He was feeling the engines churning. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I will say one thing about, if we're going to pick a Horton book, I would probably go with Horton Hears a Who, because he really stepped up the allegory and undertones in that book as opposed to the first one, which was still amazing. But the second one, even, I don't know if you remember, there were like a set of like monkey brothers that had all this weird, like, that I didn't get it at the time, but, this political radicalization of, how you're supposed to treat, these people on the speck of dust. Is it real? Are they really people? Is there really a world? Or, are you just, making it up? And there was a lot. I think there were even more undertones in the second one than the first one.
Yeah. I would go for the more complex of the two stories. So Horton Hears a Who is in the finals. Are you marking that, Mark?
I will start. Apparently I can't keep track of notes today. The notes I've taken have vanished. They were sitting right in front of me.
While you get a piece of paper and write down Horton Hears a Who, I think another finalist has to be 1957's The Cat in the Hat, not only for the character that it gave us and the fact it really is born out of spite. I mean, he was like, if I can get Dick and Jane out of libraries, I'm doing my job. I don't want people reading that because they're boring and terrible or whatever.
It's weird that an artist would be driven by anger for something.
Yeah. And resentment and pettiness. That's very petty. But also, like, Dr. Seuss is my Al Perkins or Jenkins or whatever book it is has The Cat in the Hat, because The Cat in the Hat is Dr. Seuss. They are one and the same. So that has to be a finalist as well. Let's take a brief break. And when we come back, we'll pick out more finalists, and then we will select a winner.
Sounds good to me.
Or Yogi Bear will murder us all and we won't return.
No,
who knows?
Why did Random House pick that book up? I don't understand.
You shouldn't have tied that bag to the tree. We'll be right back. This podcast is brought to you in part by Soylent. And if you are like me, you find yourself so busy that you're not taking the time to cook meals or eat healthy. You wind up taking the easy way out, quote unquote, where you're having drive-through or you're getting the stuff from the snack aisle of a convenience store. But it doesn't have to be that way because of Soylent. Soylent is a great way to replace meals or get a little bit of extra protein, either in bar, powder, or shake form. There's Soylent Complete Meals, there's Soylent Complete Energy, Soylent Squared, and even Complete Protein. And it's the original food tech company. They make delicious and nutritious nutrition products in convenient formats. So however you want to ingest it, it is there for you. And it's perfect for breakfast, lunch, or anytime you need a nutritious meal that tastes really good. And these do taste good. There are a ton of different flavors. You can pick the ones you like and build out a pantry of natural, healthy ingredient meal replacements that you can have anytime that you need them. Go to Soylent.com/WeGotThis and use code WeGotThis to get 20% off your first order. That's Soylent.com/WeGotThis and code WeGotThis for 20% off your first order. Check it out today.
We Got This with Mark and Hal is brought to you by Feels CBD. CBD isn't about what you feel, it's about what you don't feel. Stress, anxiety, pain. I have started taking it. It's been super helpful for me. It relieves any pain that I may be having. You know, I try to get some exercise, but if it's been a few days and I haven't done it, I get a little sore afterwards. No problem. Feels CBD really takes care of that, and I can't thank them enough. It relieves pain. It helps with nervousness and sleeplessness. And importantly, there are no harmful side effects. It will keep your head clear. So if that's something you worry about, it's not the type of product that will make you cloudy. This is CBD, and Feels is dedicated to providing a better way to feel better. It's a premium CBD that'll help you keep your head clear and feel your best. It's hassle-free, delivered directly to your door. CBD naturally helps reduce stress, anxiety, pain, and sleeplessness, and there's no hangover or addiction. Feels offers a free CBD hotline to help guide your personal experience so that you can find your perfect dose, whether that's a whole dropper, 2 droppers if you're about to fall asleep, just a few drops if you want to just loosen your muscles up a little bit. It really is a great product. Start feeling better with Feels. Become a member today by going to feels.com/WeGotThis, and you'll get 50% off your first order with free shipping. That's feels.com/WeGotThis to become a member and get 50% automatically taken off your first order with free shipping. Feels.com/WeGotThis.
And we're back.
We have two finalists right now. The classic Horton Hears a Who from the early years of Dr. Seuss, and his drastic turn into writing for the youngest readers with The Cat in the Hat. Let's talk a little bit more about The Cat in the Hat. We just kind of began that before the break. Did you guys grow up on this book?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, Gabe liked this one better than I did. This was not like, I didn't have like a hatred of it, but like Gabe had like, I think he had a stuffed cat in the hat. So in my mind, Cat in the Hat was my brother's thing. I was a one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish man.
It's very chaotic. It's a very chaotic book. And if you're prone to anxiety, it can be like all of a sudden you're there. Like I think more of us are the pet fish than any other character. We all want to be Cat in the Hat. Like we want to think we're freewheeling and just come in and have whatever care, or even thing one or thing two. We're like
invite two friends over that they didn't even say could come.
But I'm 100% that goldfish. So like, hey, you better clean this up. Why did you let that cat in the house? You're fine there are two of you. You can't amuse each other.
I don't remember giving permission for a party, Joel. You know, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Is that, as a kid, that's really what it felt like. It's as you're reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, if my parents would only go out and leave me here, then I could do whatever I want. And there'd be a cat that would show up with this box of all these magical things. And it really spoke to like childhood wish fulfillment of like, cause that's what, and especially you couldn't go out. It's raining, like we're inside. You know, there were no iPhones back then. Like, what are we possibly going to do? And I think I enjoyed that book more on like on that kind of level more than any underlying meaning as far as like, you know, what Dr. Seuss was trying to teach or tell me. I think that was just a fun kind of wish fulfillment book for me as a kid.
Yeah.
I think it was designed that way. Like if this whole thing was the Dick and Jane books suck. So let's make something that kids will like. Then you're not like if your entire job is just make kids entertained, why not make it just chaotic hedonism?
Totally.
Fly kites in the house, fling paint everywhere.
And there's also a little bit in books like this where it's about children's literacy, and here are the vocabulary words that we want you to use, where you're tricking kids into eating their vegetables. Like when my mother told me carrots were candy when I was very, very young, and that's what I thought until my Aunt Shelley gave me chocolate. And now look at me. But there is a certain thing to like, you're reading this crazy story that you wish if only my parents left me here. That whole thing is really a guise to get you to read and expand every time you read, you're expanding your vocabulary in some way or sharpening your vocabulary.
So in a way, it's, as far as like there being like an underlying morality message, that wasn't it. It was more about kind of stealth learning and getting you to love, language and reading. So really, there was an underlying message there. It was, it was just different.
It was T plus H plus E equals the. That was the underlying message. Here's what these words look like.
It just shows what he could do with language, and literally all different, ways. It's incredible.
Yeah. I also think the next book, his other 1957 book, it should also be a finalist.
I think this is my contender.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas, not only because the television special is so good. In fact, that's just icing on the cake, but it is a great story, especially at a time when maybe not the height, but certainly ascending towards the height of commercialism around the holidays.
Right.
Children, that is not what this is about. So if you take away all of the frivolity and the presence, that really it's being together and celebrating the spirit of togetherness and whatever is important, whatever the holiday may be, is really what's important. That is a huge lesson.
I remember I was in high school and, I think it was a history teacher said, all right, we're going to have a guest speaker today. And he left the room, put the TV on, and he played The Grinch on The Grinch Stole Christmas. And that was like our lecture for the class. And
that teacher is so awesome.
Yeah. And it was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. But even, in high school, it resonates. It resonates as you're a kid. It resonates as a teenager. It resonates as an adult. The story is just timeless. And at the time, it was done in such an engaging way that, obviously that message has been, explored in different ways, but never like this, and never with this much kind of dexterity on, to appeal to all ages. So I thought it was an amazing story. I agree. It should be a contender for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just my personal favorite, I think, like as an adult on this list. A, because I've loved every version of it. B, because I worked at Universal Studios forever and was surrounded by Grinch stuff for years and years every year around the holidays. Yeah. So I'm always going to have an affinity for it. But also for how much it has meant to so many people for so long, and the longevity that it has had as a holiday staple has meant that so many different hands have played a part in it. Like, the Grinch was not green until Chuck Jones made him green for the animated special. Like, there are all these all of the details of the story have been put together in like the last page of the book is the Grinch sitting, carving the roast beast with two Whos sitting next to him. Now it's like, that scene, it pulls back. There's a million Whos, all of whose stories we know, who have now each, in the way that the Who's in Horton Hears a Who went from, it feels like the book of the Grinch is the Horton hatches the egg. That's the egg. And the life that the Grinch has taken on since is the Whoville and the speck of dust. You've got infinite stories inside that snowflake.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. In fact, we even got like an iconic song from the Chuck Jones special.
Yeah.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And
sung by Tony the Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it narrated too, like by like Boris Karloff? The original one. Yeah. It's we still watch it every year, whether the kids want to or not. We still
I watch both versions. Yeah. I say both. I did no disrespect to Benedict Cumberbatch. I didn't watch that one yet.
You just haven't watched it. That's fine. Yeah. It's ultimately also very interesting, that character, the Grinch, who is a villain through and through, turns out to be capable of changing, especially when behavior is modeled for him. When he sees that what's really important, that changes him. And that's an important little sort of like side story there, is like, we all have in us the ability to change and to learn. And sometimes all it takes is having that proper behavior, love, caring, showing what's important, modeled for us.
Yeah. You're not going to get an argument from me.
Yeah,
I love this one. I think it's also in the canon of Dr. Seuss important because it was apparently quite personal to him, because he wrote this starting on December 26th at 53 years old, immediately following a overly commercialized and unsatisfying Christmas that he had had. And the Grinch is, he said the Grinch is 53 years old. Like, he's like, this is me. And I think it's in knowing that. And it's funny what you're saying about like having the behavior modeled for you is what ultimately leads to this turnaround for him. He said that he wrote this super, super quick. Like, this one just flowed out of him in a couple of weeks, except for the very ending. So I guess he needed to see the story play out before he knew how the ending was going to take shape, which I think is kind of fun. To start writing a Christmas Carol and not know if Scrooge is going to become good by the end.
Yeah, I wonder if he focus grouped it and he, I know, right?
Look, dude's got some commercial in him. Dude's got some commercial in him.
Yeah. What about, we're talking about stories. What about Yertle the Turtle, which is his allegory for Hitler? A turtle who demands that turtles pile up so that he's his king and nobody can be higher than him. Then he gets angry at the moon. How dare the moon be higher? And then Mac, the turtle on the bottom, sneezes and upends the whole thing. I think it's more worth noting that he was putting things that political in his work rather than it being. I don't think it's a finalist. Do you agree?
Well, he literally, I think, in his political cartoons, he made Hitler a turtle with the mustache, and then he basically Yertle the Turtle is that turtle image of Hitler without the mustache. So it's definitely up there. I don't think it has kind of like the it's weird to say depth and nuance of the other Dr. Seuss books, and it's also a shorter book. It's it's definitely kind of one of the shorter short stories, but it's you know what, I would put that as like a runner up, you know, around.
Yeah, but not a finalist.
It's still iconic.
He does have a great collection of these really heavy-handedly allegorical political books. Like Yertle the Turtle, and I would say, the Sneetches too, another one that's from a short story collection, but specifically about anti-Semitism.
Yes.
But it mixes a few other things as well. With
it
the
does.
Sort of
like
what about coming into town with the machine that adds
what about the character?
It.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about the character that got rich from, all of that? And if anything, it's going to be an allegory all the way to today. How can I profit on, it basically racism, hate, and, separating people. And it's literally, there's a very, very, I don't want to say disturbing, but it's just a very, very iconic and, moving panel of him just driving away with a cart full of money, not caring, what they were doing or how they were hurting each other or even how they resolved. It didn't matter to that character. He made his money. Doesn't matter. He's off to cause chaos to the next town and make money there. So I think there's another underlying lesson as well. So I don't know. I think we got another strong runner up here.
Yeah. They're runners up. They're not quite there. There. Is something like Green Eggs and Ham, which is fun because it's on a bet and it's an iconic story. Sam I Am is a well-known character, and it's one of the few where you are, we don't know who the antagonist is. We don't know who they are. They're just they're a nameless character. They're never given a name. But the places you'll go, there are actually a few books where you are the main character.
Right.
We'll get to that a little bit because I think that one's going to have to be a finalist.
The sleep book.
I mean, I don't think we can mention Green Eggs and Ham without mentioning that when Dr. Seuss died in 1991, they brought Jesse Jackson onto Saturday Night Live to read Green Eggs and Ham aloud. And that is the book that was picked by the Reverend Jesse Jackson to embody the memory of Dr. Seuss.
It is a classic
it's
moment.
Funny. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's also the funniest one for him to read because he's going to deliver it in that sermon style.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I do not like.
Yes.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah. And if you were going to pick one to become a Netflix show, that might not be one you picked, but yet we have one. We have an animated Green Eggs and Ham show on Netflix.
It's happened.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through going, I don't think the next contender appears until the Lorax in 1971.
Yeah, I think late 70s he slowed down after that big burst in the early mid 60s, late 50s, early 60s. Look, he went off, he made some TV. You can't fault the guy.
Yeah. But the Lorax.
He was living in La Jolla. He had to make some money.
Yeah. Daddy's Beach House isn't going to pay for itself. The Lorax gives you iconic character. It gives you a strong moral. It also ends. It's like a bummer.
Oh my God.
Well, you get the seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, certainly all hope is not lost, but it also doesn't end with them. There's no indication that they'll never come back to take the truffula trees that grow out of this one seed either. So it ends.
Yeah. It ends in a weird way, with a childhood call to action button, at the, if you were on a website where, I mean, some of the last lines of the book, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, it's not going to get better. It's not saying pretty much it's up to everyone reading this book in the next generation. You have to save this planet. It's not going to get better unless you get involved. And it's an amazing message.
Yeah. That remains relevant, is as relevant in its subject matter. I mean, a lot of these books, the moral lives on and makes sense, but this one, everything about it you could transplant to modern day.
Yeah.
And it is a perfect allegory for something happening at this moment. The need for action is still there.
Yep.
The destruction of the environment by industrialization is still happening all around the globe. So
in some ways it's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. As technology gets better, now we have people mining Bitcoin, and that is bad for the, it's just the amount of, there are more terrible ways than cutting down trees to destroy the environment.
Yes. And ways that I can't even get my head around, like mining Bitcoin. I don't even understand that, but I just know it's now bad for the environment because of something with electricity use, unless you're doing it on top of a dam or something. I don't know. It's a little baffling to me.
Yeah. It's probably the most, in every single aspect of it, it remains relevant and contemporary.
Well, I had a Dr. Seuss collection, and before each story, somebody famous would kind of do like a foreword, and I think Pete Seeger did the foreword for the Lorax, and he was pretty much he think he put like his own little warning label on it, like don't read this unless you're going to want to change the world after.
I love that.
Yeah, so it was really cool.
And not only is its message is absolutely the most worthwhile, but also just the details in the Lorax. Like, yes, this character, the Onceler, is the one that creates the factory and the one that also has lost everything and tells the story to the kid. But the little details, like, he spends a couple of pages having the Onceler make sure that the kid pays him to tell him this story. Like, that is the desire for money, whether it's out of absolute necessity now for the Onceler, or for most of the story where it's out of greed for the Onceler. It's still that it's a dark book. Like, it begins dark, it ends dark. It's intense. Let's go to another one of his books written later. And this one is another 20, unless there's someone after 71 before we get to Elderly, Oh, the Places You'll Go.
When was Trouble Getting to Salisaloo? What year was that?
That was 1965.
So that was one of the older ones.
In the sweet spot.
Do you want to put it in as I like everything about it in terms of it is a great moral to the story, but it is the fact that it's lesser known. Is that something we need to take into account, or?
I'm gonna say no, just because it's my favorite, and
you know what?
I'd like to put it into contention. Yeah,
let's put it in as a finalist. Because that is one that the older you get, it ages with you and becomes even more. As your problems mount, learning how to deal with them rather than, wherever you go, your problems will be there, and then you'll encounter new problems.
Yes. Oh, that bird with a sharp beak, that's now my mortgage. Okay.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Now you know. So with that, we get to our final contender, which is his final book, the graduation gift for the last 31 years. 31 years? Oh, good Lord, am I old. Oh, the places you'll go.
You know what's funny about that is that it's such a graduation book that if you look it up on Amazon, the first thing you will find is the book. The second thing you will find is the book in bulk, in bundled packs of 25.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I already pre-ordered 2 for my kids. They're 13 and 16. So
perfect.
They're ready to go. I mean, look, it is. The reason why it's such a great graduation gift is it's about something that's preparing you for all the things in life that either aren't going to go the way you planned or are going to be difficult and misadventures. No matter who you are, no matter what your status is, we're all going to suffer. And it's still, if you take those things in stride, you can go wherever you want. None of these are impossible barriers to overcome. And that is a very strong message to leave the world with as a writer of prolific children's books. That's a pretty good, here's my overall thesis statement. Look at everything I've ever done. And here's what I want to leave you with.
Right. Here's the way you tie it all together. Everything that I've been teaching you since, Hop on Pop. Now, take all of that and Godspeed, go out into the world and apply it.
Yeah.
It's kind of great to read that upon graduation. And I think he knew the responsibility that it carried, that something like Hop on Pop was probably the first thing that a lot of people read. Even before you've started going to school or as you are beginning school, Dr. Seuss is the first thing you read. And then as you are leaving school, Dr. Seuss is the last thing you read.
First thing I read was the Yogi Murders. All 30 volumes. That trail of bodies he left. There's one book he's just wearing pearls and nobody talks about it, but you know that is a trophy. It's a trophy. Nobody asks him about it.
Hey, boo-boo, there's gonna be a murder. Is there one where it's spelled MUR-A-DER? I'm gonna murder that woman.
I don't know, Yogi. The ranger might ask questions.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to be next?
I haven't seen Snaggletooth in a while.
I'm being murdered. Being alive, even. What? Mark, who are our finalists? Do we have our list of finalists now?
Our list of finalists that I swear I've been writing down.
Oh, Lord.
Is
one job.
We have Horton Hears a Who.
Correct.
The Cat in the Hat.
Yes.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yep.
The Lorax.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Places You'll Go. And I forgot to write down.
Trouble getting to Salisaloo.
Yes, I had trouble in getting to Salisaloo.
How do you spell Salisaloo? That's the problem with this guy is he makes up words. He makes up a lot of words.
Sollew. Also, it doesn't matter because no one will see it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But for your own edification.
I'll know.
It's good to want to know things. It is good to
I'll know.
So we have 5 finalists. That's it.
Horton Hears a Who, The Cat in the Hat. I had trouble getting to Salisaloo, The Grinch, the Lorax, and Oh, the Places You'll Go. So 6.
So do we want to eliminate these one at a time?
Yeah, if that's how you want to approach it. Is there okay? So let's again look over our criteria, and what we are looking for is we mentioned you mentioned the rhythm, the use of language, the moral of the story. Mm-hmm. Have we talked about the artwork?
Iconic characters. They all have great artwork. They all have great artwork.
Yeah.
It's not like one of them was drawn by me when I was in my phase where I just tried to draw Garfield all the time and Garfield was sick.
That's
like, did Garfield eat Lyman? Is that what happened? There's a lot of murderous animals. That's really
what is happening. Yeah.
Lyman didn't move out. Garfield ate him. Thought he turned into a cartoon lasagna right in front of him, and boom, that was it.
All of your books when you were a kid, much like the Cat in the Hat sequel, but yours started off white pages, and by the end were all blood red.
That's right.
Just soaked. But like, no, I mean the artwork in the sense that you can look at the Lorax and the Grinch as both having a great message. The Grinch is more crudely drawn than the Lorax is. The Lorax is a beautiful, later work where he uses color more effectively. You know what I mean? Like that's what I mean.
I was just going to say, the color palettes are different. Like one is definitely more muted and one is just like bright and vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what has a great color palette is Hands, Finger, Thumb by Al Jenkins. I think art could be a tiebreaker, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to eliminate we're going to take turns eliminating finalists one by one. Chris, you will start, then Mark will go, then I will go.
Okay, so let me think. I'm going to go with eliminating, this might be a little controversial, but I'm going to go with eliminating Cat in the Hat because I think everything else on the list has a much larger and broader moral and morality lesson to it. So I think they're more layered, whereas Cat in the Hat is like we were talking about, getting kids to read, wish fulfillment, and just fun, just a really fun book. Whereas the other, all the other ones I think have a few more layers.
Yeah,
that's fair. So we're down to Horton Hears a Who, the Lorax, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and Salisaloo.
I'm going to eliminate Oh, the Places You'll Go.
Oh boy.
It's a great book. It is a culmination of
this
everything.
Feels like an upset, Mark. I don't know.
It already did you guys think that one was going to be the victor?
Yeah.
I kind of did. I mean,
felt like it.
Really?
Felt like it could be. But hey, we're all abiding
Yeah, this is hey, you never know what's going to happen. So this is great.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got me rethinking myself. I'll tell you, no. Let's talk, because here's the reason here's the reason I was going to say why is,
go ahead.
It does feel like a culmination of everything he ever did. But when I think about Dr. Seuss, I don't like, when I think about, I guess I'm thinking of, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
As we all do.
Sure. And he has that scene at the end where he comes out on stage as an aging rocker and plays a song that I think is literally called "It's Been a Hell of a Ride" or something. Like, it's like, I kind of want I think that the winner is going to be, Seuss in his absolute prime and not wise, elderly Seuss bestowing lessons from a life lived. I want some prime era Seuss.
That's a fair point.
All right.
So I think that's why. Yeah.
So that means we're down to Horton Hears a Who, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Lorax, and Solace Salou. So we're going to do this, snake style. So it'll go me and then back to you, Mark. I'm going to eliminate Solace Salou now. It made it to the finals. It is a fine story and a great moral. I think the other finalists remaining also have very strong morals, but also they're more iconic books. And it would feel weird to me to have a discussion of what the best doctors. There are times where somebody's best is not their most well known, but I think in this case that it's going to be one of his iconic stories that has to win. So for that reason, I'm eliminating Solace Salou. That leaves us with The Lorax, Horton Hears a Who, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Mark, back to you.
I am going to go ahead and eliminate Horton Hears a Who. Wow. I think that it is a wonderful classic, but I think the other two have stronger things to say. And I think they say them quite elegantly. I think Horton Hears a Who is brilliant. But I think it is a valuable and cherished bronze medalist.
Okay. So tolerance not important to Mark. Chris, it leads to you for our two finalists, which are How the Grinch Stole Christmas and The Lorax. One of those is going to be the best.
Wow.
Doctors. Now, I understand that we're putting a lot of weight on your shoulders. However,
I understand. Wait, I'm just happy I got Solace Salou on the board.
So
yeah, I'm super happy.
It's very clear to our listeners that I messed up the order of this, which is why I had to go like a snake draft.
Yeah, we never do a snake draft. I saw what was happening and I went, Hal, are you sure? You know what? It's already started.
You
fixed it. You went snake draft.
Yeah.
But please know that the decision you make is 100% supported by both Mark and myself.
That's right.
And everybody who listens to this, and even people who don't, are forced to recognize that we are correct. So no pressure.
So this will be recorded in the Best Seuss Society website?
Correct.
That's, okay. Excellent. So now we have...
Hey, Siri, register that domain.
So we have two very, very iconic and well-known books remaining. So it is a very difficult decision. But
yeah, that's why we gave it to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I had to pick which one I would eliminate next, it would probably be The Grinch, and here's why, which would leave us with The Lorax. The Grinch is a specific holiday morality tale. It's a very specific time of year, although it branches out to how you should treat people all year long. The Lorax is an ongoing issue that could also educate people about the problems that we have, not only at the time, but literally today. So for that reason, I feel like it kind of notches just a little bit above, because it's an incredibly timeless tale that is still one that every single child and adult should read.
Well, there you have it.
Amen.
People of the world, he speaks for the trees have no tongues. Fortunately, the three of us speak just fine. So when it comes to selecting the best Dr. Seuss story outside of those 6 that will never be contenders, the answer is the one that 100% remains relevant today. And please remember, whether you are a child or an adult, that you can still take action and save the world. So The Lorax is the best Dr. Seuss story, asked and answered.
Chris Mancini, thank you for coming on the show and helping us with this.
Absolutely.
You clearly know your Seuss, or your Seuss, if you will.
I do indeed. Yes. Grew up on it, still occasionally reading it. So
Yeah.
Yes. And obviously we're going to be linking people to the Rise of the Kung Fu Dragon Master Volume 2 on Kickstarter. All sorts of cool rewards available if you back it. Also, you should be supporting independent comic book publishing, especially when it's good. And Chris does good stuff.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
It goes, thank you guys. And it goes to September 5th, but, you don't have to wait until then. You could pledge right away, and that will also help my anxiety the earlier you pledge. So it's a win-win.
And
Look at that.
Something that I feel like isn't talked about enough with Kickstarters is if you look at it and say you're in a position where like, oh, in like a week, I'll be able to back the project. In that moment, you can share that project with people you know would love it. And that is a great way to help support, is get the people that you know who love action comedy, who love comics, who love specifically Kung Fu, and send it to them as well. So not only are you backing it, but you're helping other people fall in love with good stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. That was actually, I might bring you on to plug it for me, you guys, in the next couple of shows I do.
You know what? Like Yogi Bear, I kill it every time.
Yeah.
Chris,
oh my God.
Is there anything else you want people to know about? Anywhere they can go to sort of centralize all the amazing stuff that you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. You can go to whitecatentertainment.com. That's my company, and you can get links to all the podcasts, including Conversations from the Abyss, links to the Kickstarters, other comics, and I had one other podcast called The Quiet Journeys of Professor Atwood. It's another scripted one that is kind of a sleep aid, anti-anxiety podcast but it's scripted. So it's about a scientist and explorer who goes all over the world and beyond, but it has like music and sound effects to kind of help you chill and go to sleep. So I decided to create that last year when everything was going crazy to kind of help people too.
That's awesome.
Look, we all need a bedtime story sometimes. Yeah. I get it. Well, thanks for coming on and talking with us today about some of Dr. Seuss's great bedtime and all-time stories. This topic is closed, but there are many more topics to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter at WeGotThisTweets, or
you can email us at wegotThisPodcast@gmail.com or talk about your favorite Seuss stories, including the ones by Al Jenkins, at our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/WeGotThisPodcast. Thank you to producer Ken Plume, researcher Kate McManus, graphic designer Uri Kelman, and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And thanks, of course, to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, the people of the world, for going on this journey with us through some of the great moments of our early years of reading. I know a lot of you are readers. I know we were as kids. It's something that we grow up with and love forever. And I'm glad that we get to share it with you. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. Don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Audience supported.